So what do we mean by core power? What we're trying to do here is improve the performance of our body through the stabilizing or synergist muscles. Now these are muscles that help the main muscles that are moving. So for example, if we take running, most of the muscle movement is coming from our legs, but what we need is our core muscles in our glutes and on our abs and in our back to be working really hard to make sure our posture stays good and that our legs can do the job that they need to. It's also really important for things like running where we're stabilizing our knees. So glutes are working hard to make sure we're not getting knee pains or knee problems, to make sure we're landing correctly. So we're going to run through a little routine that tackles each area of the body and those core muscles, and it will help your performance, and importantly, it will stop injuries. So to start with, we're going to come onto our backs. We're going to focus on our transverse and our rectus abdominis. So these are our ab muscles in effect. What you want to do is just roll your t-shirt up and then palpate for your iliac spine. This is the bony bit at the top of the pelvis, so you should be able to feel this on everybody. 2 fingers on it, and then you're just going to roll those fingers inside and slightly down towards your hips. And then from there, if you push your belly button down to the floor, you should feel that muscle get nice and firm. So it just tenses up as it starts to contract. Relax off and then squeeze again. So the movement of just pushing my belly button to the floor is activating that muscle, and you'll feel it firm up in your fingers. If you can't, just move your fingers around and keep trying until you feel it get nice and firm in there. You should be able to keep breathing or keep talking as you do this. So I'm contracting there, I can feel it's gone nice and firm, and I can still talk and breathe normally. When I breathe out, I'm still holding that contraction in there. You can then add in movement, so I can contract and then I can just slowly relax my leg, still contracted in that abdominis region, so I can feel it on my fingers, it's nice and firm. Drop the other one down nice and slow, keep breathing, keep that belly button pushed towards the floor. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can drop both down at the same time and come back up and still contracted. To make it even harder again, you can lift both feet off the floor, squeeze that belly button to the floor, keep it squeezed, keep it nice and firm, and then just come back up. Rotate through those. Really important to keep that squeeze here. So if you find that you're relaxing that squeeze, go back to an easier movement and just keep working through that. Really important to keep your fingers in there as well, just so you can feel what the muscle is doing. The next movement we're going to do, same position, we're just going to bring our back off the floor, so shoulders up. So we're now using our core to keep our body in this position, so stabilizing that position. And then we're just going to rotate around each side and just gently push your hands down until they touch your heel. And then come back to the middle. Everything that I'm doing here is really slow, really controlled, and I can just feel that working the correct muscles. Try and do 10 in total, 5 on each side, and then just relax yourself back down, and then go for another set. We don't want to massively fatigue ourselves so our form drops. We want to make sure we're doing good form throughout, nice and slow and controlled, so time under tension here. When we go for a run, these muscles are going to be working for long periods of time, so we want them to be working for us. The next movement is the same starting position. We're going to support our back, so come up, and then we're just going to come over to the sides and touch down on each side. You can do this with your feet up, or you can do it with your feet down, whichever you find more efficient. And you should really start to feel this in those same positions that we just were. If you want, you can add weight to that. So we've got a 7-kilogram slam ball here. To start with, just do it without to get the good technique and get endurance into that muscle. So with the weight, we can just come up and over. And I'm really trying to keep my body nice and firm as I do this, so legs nice and still. So again, good form. Try and do 10 reps, 5 each side, and then go for another set. From here, we're going to come onto our front, and we're going to bring in, so we're still focusing on the core in here, we're also going to bring in the back a little bit. So we're going to go down into this plank position. We're also going to focus on our upper body now. So even if you are a runner or cyclist, this is still really, really important. So into that nice strong plank position, nice and low, really get the core tight, nice and tight with the hips. We can then add in variations from here. So get the shoulders working, we can push ourselves up and back down, and then swap arms, so push up with the right. And I'm trying to keep my hips really nice and solid when I do this. And back down. And again, try and do 10, 5 on each side. If we then come down onto our glutes, so the glutes are some of the biggest muscles in the body and really useful for a lot of sports, so especially running, especially cycling, but activation of our glutes is really key. We see a lot of injuries because people aren't activating our glutes properly. We don't want to be using muscles or exercises that are really hard to start with, so something like a heavy squat is probably too much. So what we're going to do is start on our hands and on our knees, and we're going to go into a donkey kick. This is really nice because it isolates the glutes, so it's the only muscle that can work. So similar to on the floor, we're going to bring our core in nice and tight. We're trying not to move our lower back, so I don't want to arch my back like that because they're stabilizing muscles, they shouldn't be moving. So nice and tight in here, don't let it move, and then just donkey kick out to the back, and then a big squeeze from the glute. If you feel that on your hamstring rather than your glute, as you go up, you just want to straighten your leg a little bit, and then squeeze up from there so your hamstring can't work. Try and do 5 in total, and again, it's nice and slow, it's really controlled, and I'm getting good muscle contraction from that glute. So nice one for the glute max. We'll come into the medius and minimus in a minute. 5 on each side. Try not to drop your leg down each side you come down, and then go back up again, and really tight with that core throughout. 5 on each side, and then swap, so do 5 on the right as well. And again, if you can't quite feel the glute contracting, just straighten that leg, slightly externally rotate on the way up, and get a really nice big squeeze. The next movement, we're going to go on to glute med, so we're going to go abduction of the knee or hip. So we're going to come out to the side and squeeze up from there. Same thing, really try and get a big squeeze, feel that on the side of our hip. Try and keep your core nice and tight still, so you don't want to roll out like that. We're staying nice and tight in the core, and we're just moving that leg and hip out. Again, 5 on the left, and then 5 on the right. This whole time it's slow, it's controlled, I'm feeling the right muscles working, and I'm also stabilizing everything else in the core. Then, so to tackle the glute meds, which sit on the outside, we need to do some more lateral work. So for this, it's into a plank, this time a side plank. So we're going to come onto our elbow, side of our leg, and push ourselves up into that side plank position. So to stop our body drooping down, we're stabilizing and engaging the glute med in here. Also using a little bit of the core higher up, and then come into that nice, strong position there. If that's quite difficult for you, hold there. If you feel like you can add in a bit of leg abduction, then fine, please do. Or if you feel like you can go a little bit of hip flexion, then add those in as well, and just try and alternate between. Try and keep your hips nice and high whilst you do this, and then swap over and repeat on the other side. Good form over lots of reps, so if you can just hold yourself in that plank position to start with, if you find that when you do that you drop down, then fine, just stay there, don't do it. And same if you feel like you're doing that, don't worry for now, progress onto those. The next one is my favorite bit of apparatus, so the wobble cushion. And again, this is great for stabilizing the entire leg, especially at the hip. The only exercise to start with we're going to do is just stand on the wobble cushion. So onto the wobble cushion, bend the knee, and then just allow your hip to stabilize your foot. So straight away there you can see my knee is trying to move, and my hip is working really hard to stop that happening. Again, put your hand on your hip and you'll feel it working. The lower down you can come, so the more flexed at the knee we become and more flexed at the hip, the slightly harder that becomes. And I'm trying to stop that knee from wobbling. If it's the first time you've ever done that, it will feel very difficult. And you might find that one side is harder to do than the other. We will add these in as a progression movement to some more movements we're going to do in a minute, but for now, that should be hard enough in itself. Again, we're trying to stay nice and tight with our core here. And we're just trying to balance on that wobble cushion. The last movement we're going to do for our glutes, or focus on the glutes, is going to be a lunge, reverse lunge drive position. So we're going to start with our feet split, and we're going to lunge down, and then drive up onto our right, and squeeze up, and come back down. Try and keep your balance throughout, because that's a single leg movement. That will feel quite difficult, and again, if it's the first time you've done it, you might be wobbling all over the place. That's fine, stick at it, and you will get better. Do 5 on each side, because this will fatigue your hip quite quickly, and again, we're focusing on good form. Try and hold the drive at the top, because when you hold up there, we're stabilizing with that glute med. My left leg isn't quite as good, but we'll give it a go. And you really want to try and keep your knee nice and strong throughout. So if I show you from the front angle, we're dropping down and up, and we're solid with that knee. Try not to let that knee drop in. We're trying to use the glute to stabilize. If you do want to add a progression in, and find that a little bit too easy, which you definitely won't to start with, you can add the wobble cushion. So we're going to lunge down and then come up and drive up on the wobble cushion. That is very difficult, so this is a progression movement once you're comfortable doing it on the floor. Just adds a little bit of instability, so our body's working even harder to keep us stable. One more for the hips is going to be the clock technique. So if we stand on one of our legs to start with, so I'm going to start with my left, and then we're just going to push out to the front, out to the back, and out to the side, and then round the back. This is the hardest one, and push out there. So we're trying to hit 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And we're trying to do it nice and slow and controlled. The more time we can spend with our foot out, the more this is having to stabilize. And again, we're focusing on what our knee is doing. So you can see it trying to wobble. My body is just trying to fight that to keep it nice and stable. If you imagine when we run, every time we land, we want that to be nice and stable so we're not getting knee or hip injuries. The last two movements we're going to do are going to be a little bit more all-body movements. They're going to be similar position, one with a bit of movement, one with slightly more movement. So the first one is going to be a mountain climber. So we're going to come up into the press-up position, and then we're just going to slowly bring our leg up into the middle and down. Again, we're focusing on keeping that core nice and tight so our hips aren't moving too much, and we're coming up and in. Slow and controlled, little pause at the top and back down. And we're trying to keep the hips nice and low, so those knees are going close to the floor. So we don't want to be up here doing that. We want to get nice and low, get the core activated, and squeeze in. Try and do 12, 6 on each side, and then progress the reps as we get better. The last movement is going to be a bear crawl. So very, very similar to a mountain climber, except we're adding a little bit of movement in. So I'm going to come up into that position. The key here is to get as low as we can. So we're just going to go alternating legs. So left arm, right foot is going to go forward first. And we're trying to stay as low as we can with our knees and our entire body. Do 5 out and 5 back. Slow and controlled. Keeping the core nice and tight and keeping the body nice and low. So we don't want to be walking through like this. We want to stay low and controlled as we swap our legs over. If you've run through all of that workout at once, you should feel that your core in here is nice and sore. A little bit of fatigue in the glutes. It should feel like quite a good workout. Nothing too intense, but just enough to feel those muscles working. Give that one a go, see how you get on. Give it time, because it'll give a few weeks before it kicks in, and then see how you feel when you are doing your sport. Hope that helps, and thanks for watching.